Peace has been restored in Liberia following the peace agreement, and our role has been to maintain the peace, to keep the peace, to disarm, to rehabilitate the former fighters. Today, after 3 successive reductions of the peacekeeping force, we are now down to a level of 8,000 military troops. If you have read any of our recent reports to the Security Council, the point we are making over and over again is that there's peace in Liberia, but peace is fragile. The incidents we have primarily are of an internal nature. While we are monitoring the situation in the neighboring countries and the risk of anything in neighboring countries having consequences for Liberia, the incidents we mainly have to respond to are of internal nature. And the point we are underlining over and over again is that we unfortunately have not been able, together with the Liberians, to make sufficient progress in what we call the rule of law sector as a whole. And by the rule of law sector as a whole, I mean from the police through the prosecution, judiciary, corrections, etc. The situation is so that disputes, when they arise in Liberia, very often the population do not trust the system. And that results in mob violence, attack at police station and so on. And it's basically, they don't trust that something will happen if a suspected criminal is being apprehended by the police, and they take the law in their own hands. So it's those kinds of tensions we have to dampen to ensure they don't go out of hand. What is the challenge for the future apart from supporting the development of the national security institutions? It will of course be for the year to come to ensure and support the Liberian institutions in conducting the elections come 2011, so that they are not only free and fair but also conflict free. And that, I think, is our major challenge in the year to come. And that was also the reason why the Security Council, when they extended our mandate this September, decided that we should not reduce our military strength further until after they would look at it after the elections. And if you look at the history of the civil war, you saw the very clear links between Guinea and Liberia, Sierra Leone and Liberia, and so on and so forth. You saw many of the warlords and the weapons coming in over the border of Côte d'Ivoire. So there's no doubt in my mind that the region of West Africa is very, very closely linked in order to sustain peace. And that's why the elections in Guinea and the elections in Côte d'Ivoire is really, really important also for the future stability of Liberia. Furthermore, there's no doubt about it either that Liberia's stability is important for the other countries, because Liberia is the only one that border all 3 of them. Whether the Liberians want peace or they want to go back to war, I'm not able to say, of course, but I'm saying over and over again, whenever I have the opportunity, and when we are discussing the elections in 2011, that is really the moment for the Liberians to show whether they want to continue on the path of peace or whether they want to go back. And that is why it's so important that if they want peace and they want to sustain the peace and focus on economic development, they have to ensure that the elections in 2011 are free, fair, and conflict-free. You cannot enforce peace on people who do not want it. I mean, you can assist them in keeping the peace and in building the peace, but they have to be behind it. I wouldn't say they have skipped over the process of reconciliation, but they have certainly not made progress to the extent where you can say that there has been ethnic reconciliation, there has been solution to the land dispute, and so on. We are trying to support that process as much as possible, but again, let me say, just illustrate, when we had the report from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, if you have heard about that, published, I had a meeting in this meeting room with the civil society organizations, and they had very different views about it and how to move forward, and we were trying to engage them in discussing it and you know, agree on how to move forward. And some of them looked at me and said, no, you have to tell us what to do, because if we mess it up, you'll have to come and help us afterwards. And I said to them that no, because if it's going to be true reconciliation, it cannot be enforced from abroad. It has to be you Liberians who have to discuss it over and over again and arrive. So what we can do is to encourage them to take the responsibility to move forward on that agenda. And there's still a lot to do, no doubt about it. But that, I will also have to say, you have to look back at the history of the country, because many of the issues in relation to reconciliations are not solely linked to the Civil War. Many of those issues, I mean, some of them are, but many of those issues are linked to the, from the Liberia was created as a state. And the whole, especially the ethnic issues with the Congos or the American Liberians and the various ethnic groups. So it's a huge, it's a tall agenda.